All right, today we're going to be taking a look at Dungeon Hero. This is a quick, fun, portable, solitaire dungeon crawling zine game, and the it comes in a series of booklets. These are the core rules, and there are individual, I guess you'd call them scenarios or games to play. We're going to be playing Fortress of the Frost Giant Jarl today. And I'll just talk about the rules briefly. It's easier to understand how the game plays by actually watching the gameplay. In essence, what you do is you are creating a hero, and the attributes, these are going to be the Frost Giant's dice. My dice are going to be here. Your hero has a series of attributes and traits and items and whatever else you conceptualize that your hero has, and they're each going to be represented by a type of die to roll. So you have 1d12 trait, item, um, armor, whatever, 2d10s, 2d8s, and 3d6s. And so this is going to be the capabilities of my character. The d4 is here if you encounter something during the course of the story that you do not have a specific trait to cover, you assign it a d4. This will make sense as we play. Likewise, Frost Giant Jarl in this case is going to have the same pool of dice to draw from, and represented here in with the orange. There is what is called an advanced die, and this is going to take us through little encounters that happen that build the narrative of the story. And as I said, we'll see how it unfolds as we play. It's a little easier to just get into playing than to go through the rules, which are pretty simple but a little hard to explain. So to start, the other point is we have other attributes here called resolve and stamina. And what resolve translates to essentially is health, and we'll read the description here for resolve, which is essentially your health. So at the outset, you set your resolve to 30 and your stamina to 15. If you have an encounter that you lose, you reduce your resolve. Before you do that, you can spend points of stamina to re-roll the dice that resulted in the loss of resolve, and you win the game by getting to the end of the story and not having your resolve at 0. So with that said, let's just get into the creation of our character. Now, there are no specific rules or guidelines as to how you can create your character. It can be whatever you want, whoever you want. You can create a character completely out of your head. You can turn to any type of resources that you have. I thought for this story, I'm going to come to these resources for inspiration, including the main rules here and this ferretory supplement, which was very kindly sent to me by one of my viewers, and I thank them very much for that. I've been enjoying this along with other materials from the solitary rules for Morkborg. I'm going to use this as inspiration. I'm not actually going to play a character from here, but this felt like the right place to go. And so what I'm going to start out by doing here is my character is going to be, I like the combination of wretched royalty and esoteric hermit. And I should say, I would recommend before playing, as I said, there's a bunch of these little stories or little booklets to read the little paragraph at the outset to get a sense of, you want to create a character that will fit into this world. So my story here is, freezing and starving, you find a Viking outpost, but to stay with them for the winter, you must help them put down the Frost Giant Jarl. So that's all I've got. I haven't opened this adventure up yet to see what happens, but based on that knowledge, I want to create a character that will fit into that world and hopefully have some good choices of attributes and traits to work within the world. And conceptually, I like this some combination of wretched royalty and esoteric hermit, because I'm freezing and starving and wandering alone here in this unfriendly winter wilderness. At least I think it's winter because it's a frost giant. And I like this concept of a blade, that my weapon is a blade of my ancestors, and it's a little unreliable. So I of again here, the rules in this game don't say anything about having an unreliable weapon. You could decide, for example, that if you wanted to make your weapon unreliable, that there was a die roll that you did before that or whatever. I'm not going to overcomplicate it for this video, but I would say that in playing this game, you can add on a little bit if you want to do that. But I'm just going to call this the Blade of My Ancestors, and I haven't yet assigned it a value. We're going to see what we come up with and how we want to assign these things. But this is a Blade of My Ancestors, and I also like the concept here from the Hermit, that I'm going to have some scrolls, and we've got here, through the Morkborg rules, we can determine whether or not they're sacred or unclean. I might give myself 2 scrolls, one of each. I don't know. We'll turn to the scroll area to get some sense of what those could be. So an unclean scroll here, I could roll for it. We've got like essentially a fireball. And again, we're not going to be using it with these rules. This is just the inspiration for it. And let's see, we've got a creature falling asleep. I like the fireball. Palms open the southern gate. So essentially, this is going to be some type of fireball that we can toss. And we'll go with the sacred one. This is a healing spell, Grace of the Dead Saint. I don't want to mess with the healing rules in this game, so I wouldn't use something like that. Speaking with animals, maybe we'll do this bestial speech to show you how that could work. If we do an encounter, we'll call this bestial speech. It won't necessarily be a magical scroll. It will be like an attribute that we have. So we've got the Blade of Our Ancestors, and we have palms open the southern gate. Now I'd like to take some type of armor as well, so we could choose something thematically from here. So we'll just have some I think let's see, we are freezing and starving, so we'll say we have some tattered skins that we're wearing. This is probably, because we're freezing and starving, this is probably going to be my lowest value, so I would assign that likely a D6 in terms of armor to have. And what else might we want to have? I think we want to have some other types of attributes, like perhaps we can be sneaky, and perhaps we can be handy, or we can be like a tinkerer or something like that. And then I wanted also, here I'm going to roll random to see if I get some type of inspiration from this to have a trinket or something that would be suggestive. I got a 42. A book, Night Queen. Not sure what a book, all right. I'm going to say that we have some local knowledge. That's going to be like a trait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think I can have one more. Let's roll on another trinket and see if this gives us any. 86. A pair of wooden handcuffs. Well, I'm going to translate, let's see, wooden handcuffs. Well, you know what? Maybe we're going to be carrying some type of trap or device that could help us catch something or whatever. I don't know if that's going to be useful. That makes sense, though. we're out in the woods, we might have a trap. I'm going to give that a D6 as well. And I think I'll give my weapon, my melee weapon, will be assigned the D12, and the fireball will get a D10. This I'm going to give the, well, maybe I'm going to give sneaky a D10, and we've got handy, we'll give a D8. I think I'm going to give my local knowledge a D10, and we'll give my fireball and the bestial speech a D8. So this I'm going to work up into my character here, and we want to give our character a name. I think we've got some name options back here. All right, we're going to roll let's see, we're going to roll a D4 and a D6 to come up with the possibility of a name. 2 and 1, Galt. All right, so we're going to be Galt. And Galt is some sort of, I'm not going to draw a picture of Galt, I'll spare you that. But Galt is going to be some type of exiled royalty. And will be having the blade of their ancestors. And we're going to have some sort of trap or device. Now, the handy and the trap and the device, that might be too close to each other. That could be confusing. So I'm gonna take the handy off here and give myself something else. I will give myself, I'm going to give myself another attribute that is, let's just call us light on our feet, meaning we're dexterous. We have some kind of dexterity here. So that's kind of a dexterity thing, a sneaky thing, and then we're carrying a trap and a device. All right, so we're set up to play, and now we're done with this. We're set up to play, and we get going here, searching for wanting to stay with this Viking outpost and attempting to help them find this frost giant Jarl to stay. We don't need this either, in fact. Okay, we start the game with freezing snow D6. So this D6, this is going to be our, I think it's called the advanced die. And it says when we come to a paragraph here that's locked, we must read it. You stagger through the freezing snow, and in the darkness you see the faint glowing of a fireplace at an encampment. So what we do is we roll this D6, we got a 5, and when we get to this encampment, there is an aggressive sentry, and this is a combat requirement with 6 health. It's rolling a D8. So we are always looking with the 2 die. So we're encountering the D6 of the freezing snow, as well as the aggressive sentry, which is going to be rolling a D8. And my frost giant Jarl here is going to be basically, I didn't have quite all the same color dice for him, but he's going to be orange and I'm going to be blue. And the way it works is when you have this type of encounter, you need to choose your attributes that that best match this situation. So we're walking along in the snow, and we come upon this. There's a fireplace, there's an encampment, and there is this aggressive sentry. Now, we didn't give ourselves much charisma. I think we're gonna be, we don't have much. The bestial speech, I'm gonna go with that as also perhaps being some type of communication, since I hadn't really figured that out for us. So we'll give ourselves a D8 on that, and I don't really think I have anything else. I mean, I could say local knowledge applies, but that doesn't make a lot of sense because I don't know where I am. So I'm going to go with a D4. Now, you could say to yourself, well, why don't I just say every time my D12 and my D10 apply? But there's really no fun in that. So the way this works is you roll your 4 dice and you match the values and see what comes out on top. Now, I actually got 2 4s here. If there's a tie, you remove the ones that are tied, and then you re-roll. And unfortunately, it is a re-roll. It's not a comparison. So I would have come out on top here had it not been a re-roll, but the chances of that happening again are pretty slim. So we got a 3 and a 6, and indeed, this aggressive sentry, we did not do any damage to him, and in fact, his aggressiveness is true to form and does 3 damage to us. I'm not going to modify that at this point with stamina, so our resolve now is going down by 3 right at the outset. Not such a great beginning. We're at 27. And now, again, you could say, well, I try a different approach or whatever, and perhaps try to chat with him, some local knowledge, and switch out a D10, but I'm not going to do that. We're going to continue to roll here, and so we are making him angry, and to the extent of further 4 points of damage to us, and so we're going to go down right away to 23 resolve. We're getting a little bit desperate, so maybe we will, for the sake of this video, and so we don't die here outside of the encampment, maybe we do try something a little bit different. Maybe we say, hey, we could share some information with you about where this frost giant actually is. We know where this guy is, and this is our local knowledge, and so that will be our D10 that we're rolling, along with what I'm saying is something that just doesn't apply, the environment, and we're encountering still the aggressive sentry. So let's see if our promise of local knowledge is helpful, and indeed it is helpful. So we do bring the sentry down to 3 points. Thematically, he's listening to what we're saying and where we think this frost giant is. So we're going to continue to roll on that and try to convince him that we know something, that we know enough to warrant the admission, to warrant our admission into this encampment and to learn something more about it. He's still listening, but he's getting a little suspicious, yet finally in the end he agrees to allow us through his guard of the encampment. And at this point we'd be rolling this advanced die again and we only got a 1 here. So we approach the encampment. We didn't quite get to, when you get to a narrative place in the story, you stop and read that. We didn't quite get there. We walk forward, we see the encampment, but it is, there's still some people sleeping there. We don't want to wake them up. And to get by them, I think we're going to need to sneak by them. So we are continuing. It's a D6 enclosed encampment, and we have the sentry there. We move forward. We have the sentry there who is now just sort of standing watching, and he's the D8. And we are going to sneak by, and we're going to sneak by with our D10, and I think we're prepared at this point with our weapon. Should anybody awaken, we're not going to be happy because we've dealt with the sentry, and indeed with this roll we move forward into the encampment, and we find the village chieftain. It says you meet with the village chieftain, and he agrees to give you shelter for the winter if you agree to help his men fight the frost giant Jarl, who has set up camp in a nearby ravine and has been conducting raids against his people of late. You have no choice to agree and set off with him and his men. All right, so we are agreeing, and we're going to set off with him and his men. And now, next it says, roll 1d6 plus 2. You have that many Vikings you can use to fight enemies. You may spend a Viking to add plus 2 to one of your challenge die rolls, or to ignore all resolve loss from a challenge roll. Each time you use a Viking, add an extra third D8 despair trait to the environment on the next challenge roll. So basically what this is saying is we're going to have some assistance here. Let's roll our D6 plus 2. So we're going to have 4 Vikings that are going to be with us And if we need to use them, we will then suffer a future challenge in what's going on. So we're coming then, I guess we're here, so we'll be rolling the advanced die here. We're going to advance 2 to the mountain slope. So we are setting off here. These are D6 mountain slopes, and we are with the, let's see, we had left this closed encampment. So we're leaving the encampment. We are with this chieftain, and we are approaching some mountain slopes. Now, for us to walk here, I mean, well, we're light on our feet, so we're light on our feet, and we not going to be as such impacted by whatever ice or whatever could be there. And well, trap device, that could be generic. Maybe we have some snowshoes. I mean, that's probably not. We'll just go with the D4. I don't really have anything else. It's basically just the way we're walking here to see whether we are successfully walking along and can advance the story here. And in fact, we are going to be suffering. The snow is getting through our tattered skins, as you can see here. This being dexterous and light on our feet hasn't been enough. We slip, perhaps we fall, and we're going to be injured. And we're going to be injured 3 points here of injury. And so we're going to go down to a 20 on our resolve. This is feeling like a harder journey than we bargained for, even though we just set out with this chieftain. So we continue walking along, and this injury is turning into a festering wound that is really starting to bother us because we are losing even more resolve. So now we're down to 16, and I think soon our stamina is going to be impacted here. But we'll just continue along as it is and hope for the best. But no, indeed, we're going to have to spend stamina points to do a reroll here, because I don't want to take this 3 resolve. So let's try to reroll here, and it's not looking good here. We're down to 14. Reroll again. All right, we're going to end up we're just going to take these 2 points. So now our resolve is down to 14 and our stamina is down to 13, and we haven't really advanced very far. These, what was known as just some slopes is turning out to be a rough road for us. And we are down to, that's going to be 4 more off the resolve. We're down to 10 resolve, and this D6 keeps rolling a 6. So, all right. So here we get a tie. So we remove these, and we, as I said, it's unfortunate we have to re-roll these because we would have finally made some progress here, and indeed, finally we do. As we trudge along, we get through these mountain slopes, but we are weary and perhaps realizing how ill-prepared we are, but the story can still advance. So we're going to advance the story to 2, and this gets us to, there are dropping temperatures. With the dropping temperatures, we can rely really only on our tattered skins. We don't have, well, we really don't have anything unless we try to use our fireball for warmth. But I think we're going to say we are relying on our tattered skins to keep us warm, as well as our own dexterity, our ability to move around and keep ourselves warm. And that's a D6 dropping temperature, and we have, so we're going here D6 against D6 is the bottom line for the scenario here of the weather impacting us. And wow, that's look at that. The weather is nipping at us. I am going to spend 2 points of my stamina to re-roll both of these and hope that we can pull the skins around us and dance through the snow to warm ourselves and continue the walk. And we are able to do that and advance the story. And we will be advancing the story 1, 2, 3, 4, encountering right into some winter wolves. So the damage that we encountered, the wound that we had, we're freezing, but we're managing to move through this world, and we see some D8 winter wolves there in the freezing temperature. Their breath is creating vapor that we can see. There's a whole lot of them, and we are going to be pulling out our blade of the ancestors, and also we are going to be, well, we're going to be trying to evade them a little bit, I think. So I'm not sure I can say, it's not really fair to say we're going to take out our blade and also be sneaky just so I can roll that D10. However, I think it is fair to say that our local knowledge of well, actually, it's the bestial speech, really. It's the D8. We have our knowledge of how wolves act in this environment, and we take out our blade and we use our knowledge and our skill to approach them and try to get rid of them. And indeed, we strike out at them, and there are 6 points of health, or say 6 wolves, and we manage to destroy 2 of them. So there 4 remain and are sniffing around the bloody carcasses of their pack mates. And we have here these are the wolf leader rises up and lurches at us and manages to get a bite through, unless we muster our will, we use our stamina to bring forth our blade again and try to evade him and wound him, and we fail to do that. But we'll try one more time to do that with what remaining stamina we do have, and it's futile. It's futile. We're not going to continue on with that. So I think per the rules, I think there we were going to be taking 2 more points. Our resolve is down to 8. These wolves are really, really proving to be a menace to us. But in the end here, we rise up, and with the shreds of resolve and stamina we have left, we are able, with a 10 against a 6, to decimate, destroy, murder the remaining 4 wolves. There is a bloody, snow-filled area with the carcasses of the wolves there. Perhaps we take some of their wolf skin to bolster up a little bit our tattered skins, although we're still staying at a D6, and we can continue to advance this story. And we advance 6 now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, to the icy remains of a battlefield. This is a D6 roll, and there's the icon here that's going to say that there is some treasure that we find on this battlefield. So we're leaving behind these wolf carcasses, represented unfortunately still by this D8, coming upon this battlefield here. And local knowledge will certainly, I think, come into play with examining the battlefield or knowing what to do, and maybe also even sneaking around this battlefield, because who knows who could be left. I'm realizing I completely forgot about my Vikings. I could have used them for help with the wolves. Had I done that, though, we would have had, per the rules, another D8 being rolled here to represent the despair trait. So we didn't do that. So we're looking around the battlefield for some remnants of treasure or armor that we can find, and indeed we do find something, and so we can mark that down in our treasure. I think for treasure we were rolling a d6. Well, I didn't really see in the rules if you do roll a d6 for treasure or not, but I did see that when we defeat an enemy, we get a treasure, and I wasn't really counting that. So if we abstract this here, we got 1 treasure for the sentry, and we got 1 treasure for the wolf. So we'll just go with that. It doesn't really matter too much. Mark down those, as well as whatever we recovered on the icy fields, icy remains of the battlefield. Now, there is no provision in the rules for sort of, say, switching out something. Well, we could say we find a d6 something and switch it out based on the story that we now know. So that doesn't really exist in the rules, but you could certainly do that. But we will just continue on here, and we will, so we're leaving the battlefield, which is this d6, and we are advancing just 1 to the, oh, we're getting closer. We're getting closer because we are seeing one of the frost giants' sentries are out wandering this battlefield, maybe looking for treasure of their own. They're represented by a d8, and they have their combat value of 8. And of course, we will immediately draw our Blade of the Ancestors, and we will, well, we could hide. We could definitely go into hiding here, because this is somebody who just appears. Maybe it's getting dark and we're trying to hide somewhere behind a corpse or something like that. And we just manage to succeed in that, and therefore, well, I don't know, can we hide from battle? Again, thematically, question here, because maybe we're not hiding. We snuck up on this guy and basically stabbed him in the back. That's what we did for 3 points of damage here, and so we'll bring this down to 5, and we're not really being sneaky anymore, but we don't have another value that's relevant. So again, question on the rules, thinking about this as a fight where now it's like we ambushed the guy with our sneak, but now that we did that, I think, to be fair, I have to say that all we have now is our weapon and our armor, because this is basically the second round of combat. So we have that, and we got a lot of 3s here. So we tied them, and again, I guess the sentry defended with our weapon. So we are, per the rules, we're continuing along. We're tussling here, and we do 2 more points of damage. Even though this was our sneak die, we do 2 more points of damage with it, and he is bleeding out in this icy remains of the battlefield, and perhaps he'll be contributing as another corpse to it. And yet he's got some life in him here. He's got some life in him here, and rises up and conquers us with 1 point, bringing our resolve down. That was a kind of depressing situation for us, so we're going to lose 1 more resolve. Well, you know what? Maybe we'll spend a stamina point here to re-roll. So we'll re-roll and attempt to sort of stab at him again, and that was not effective. So we're down another point of resolve, and we resume the fight. We resume the fight amid this battlefield. We look around, and we can see now that he is realizing he is far from the rest of his group, and his resolve seems to have left him, and we successfully defeat him. So we'll pick up a treasure point for that, and we will move along. I will say that we're pretty tired here, and I did not take any type of healing potion. I considered it, but I thought that for some reason I thought that would be antithetical to the rules of the game. So we only advance by 1 here, and we are seeing this is the frost giant is unaware. We've discovered the frost giant, but he's unaware, and therefore he is only rolling a d6, but he does have the help or the memory of his sentry, so he's got the d8 as well. And we certainly here now are rolling our 2 best die because we are sneaking up. I mean, story-wise, narratively, we're sneaking up with our blade and seeing if we can dispense with this guy, and we are just not super successful. That was 2 ties. I guess we're going to just re-roll. Wow, this is a real tussle. This is a real tussle. We're not a clear victory here at all for us. And in this instance, the sneak factor did enable us to inflict some damage on him. Now, I don't know if this, when he's gone, if we successfully kill him narratively, how that will work. But we did do with our blade, we have done 4 points of damage to this unaware frost giant. And the question is, can we still consider sneak? I think so, because the book says unaware. So he's just at a deficit there. And as such, now we have, I think we've killed this guy. We were supposed to find him. I think that we have killed him. We'll get a treasure for that. And we'll move along. We'll see what the story has to say about that. Roll our advanced die 3, 1, 2, and we come to this. After a harrowing journey up the mountain, your group comes within sight of the Frost Jarl's fortress. It will be difficult to enter. So this, I guess, was just a different frost giant. The chieftain whispers over to you, saying that if you've never fought giants before, that you should keep an eye on their attack from overhead. Choose one of your traits. When fighting a frost giant, you may add +1 to its roll. Well, I think there I'm going to go with this, my d6 +1, my light and my dexterity in essence, because the sneaky I think can only go so far. Of course, I'd rather add a +1 to my d10, but I think the sneaky can only go so far. So with that piece of knowledge, that seems to be local knowledge, we'll advance our story, 2, 3, 4, 5, to see some wolfhounds barking. We are approaching, and we're certainly not sneaky. We see the wolfhounds barking, and this is the kind of the unaware frost giant, not the frost giant Jarl, but someone else. And we come upon these dogs, perhaps guarding the fortress. We certainly will have our blade out. And I think, again, we're going to go to, well, we have bestial speech, so maybe we'll try to calm these dogs in some way. So we have our blade out, but we're also going to try to calm the dogs in some way. And we successfully, well, let's put it this way. They're skeptical of us. They don't attack. They're kind of whimpering and looking at us quizzically, but eventually we are able to dispense with them, and we calmed them enough that they stood still, and with our blade we dispense with all of them, and we can move on. There's another bloody patch of ice, and we walk past it to 1, 2, 3, 4 to the gatekeeper. We are getting closer and closer to the actual fortress of the frost giant, and we're pretty tired though. Our resolve is at 7, our stamina is at 8, and I think I'm going to leave it here so as not to ruin the entire story as to whether or not we succeed, and if so, how. But we've used a combination of our local knowledge, our stealth, maybe this this speaking to the speaking to the animals is more of a spell thing. I think I had conceptualized that as a spell, really. So a little magic, a little fighting, and so far a lot of resolve and stamina to get this far. Whether or not we'll succeed, who knows? But that is a look inside this Fortress of the Frost Giant Jarl Dungeon Hero Zine adventure. These are the main rules, and there are a bunch of little adventures you can print off. This has to do with robed cultists, and there are a bunch more. I'll put the link down to them below, and you can get a sense of the way this little game develops, and how I think if you bring your own storytelling to it, obviously with any RPG, but with something like this, the more storytelling of your own that you bring to it, the more involved you can get. I would also bring in some concept of not just finding treasure, but having the treasure be something perhaps that you can reassign a trait to. So you could switch something out and not just tally the treasure, but really switch something out, or, lose the tattered skins and get something else. Again, keeping it probably, if it was that, to my low dice for the switch out, so that otherwise you're just rolling, a bunch of d12s, and it's not quite as interesting or tension ridden. That are we gonna be able to get to the end before our resolve and our stamina are at 0? And that's probably a modification I would make when playing. The other thing that one could do, which I didn't do here, was I picked up this kind of class. Say we've got traits here, but like a class, my exiled royalty didn't come up really thematically all here with this story so far. But could this play in almost as a luck type of thing, or give yourself a certain amount of times that the exiled royalty, your class, would allow you to do something like a reroll, and somehow incorporate that into the traits. Something to modify. I know you get the rerolls on the stamina, but something beyond just the stamina to reroll, that it would tie in more narratively to a story piece if that came up. So for example, for the cultist ones, if you yourself had been an exiled cultist, there might be something within this story that would thematically suggest that would allow me, with my own background, to have a bit of an edge represented by, say, a reroll. Just a thought there to add a little something to this, but the Dungeon Hero core rules, very light, and it is a quick, fun, portable, solitaire dungeon crawling zine game, playable in about 15 to 20 minutes.